song introduces mystery to the musical. Ooh. What happens is that Mary, in this very big, very empty house, swears that she hears somebody crying. And we in the audience hear it too, and we are also intrigued. Unless we already know the story, then we know what it is. But at the very beginning, if you don't know the story, you are very intrigued because you also hear crying. And so Mary's kind of wandering around this big empty house looking for the source of this crying, whatever it may be. And as she wonders, is this crying her parents calling out to her? And so she's wandering around this big house, but she is not the only one who's wandering around this big house. Because Archibald, much like Mary, is also having a sleepless night. But he's not hearing the crying, or it's possible that he is, but he's kind of blocking it out. What he's hearing more than anything else is the singing. And we in the audience can also hear the singing, but we know where the singing is coming from, because the singing is coming from Lily. And of course that's exactly what Archibald is wondering. Is the singing coming from Lily? Is Lily not truly dead? And Lily herself, be her ghost or spirit or memory, is also wandering around the house because she also hears the crying. But Lily believes that it's Archibald who's crying, and she's actually singing directly to Archibald, as noticed at the end of her line when she says, instead of maybe it was me like Mary does, she says maybe it was you. So you have these two people and one spirit, memory, ghost, however you want to look at it, wandering around the house trying to find the source of this particular mystery. So we add mystery, we add intrigue, we add this sense of the unknown that both of these main characters experience. And because both of these main characters are experiencing it, we as an audience are also experiencing it. They don't know about it, they're a bit unsettled by it, and yet they can't help but be curious and wander around the house looking for the source. And then we get to the main climax of this particular song, leading to the very end. Now, one of the things that you notice as it goes into this moment is that Archibald and Mary are actually pretty similar. We hear earlier in the song that Mary is hoping that this person that she hears crying is somebody that she can spend time with, someone who can be a companion. And here, near the end of the song, we have Archibald and Mary singing the same thing. They're both singing about how they've been dreaming about a garden, a secret garden, if you will, and they both sing about how they may have been dreaming about, as they themselves put it, the life that they'll never know. And I realize that these two are fairly similar, because they both lost their family, basically. I mean, Archibald still has his brother, but the person that Archibald truly loved was Lily, and Lily is the one who made him a better person, and so without Lily, Archibald is basically lost. And then we get into the climactic end of this song, as Lily and Mary and Archibald all sing at the same time. Now, Mary and Lily basically sing the same thing. Lily actually doesn't sing that many words during this last part, but when she does, it's basically what she sang before, and the only thing that changes about Mary is that instead of starting with, I heard someone crying, she said, I know someone's crying. This is basically just saying that she is sure that she heard someone crying, even if everybody else is saying that there's nobody else in the house. But the one that changes is Archibald. And what we get with his moment of this particular moment of the song is that he is lost without Lily. Now, we saw aspects of this particular character. We heard about it in the previous song, and we kind of saw it in the dialogue between himself and his brother, but this is really the moment where we see how much Archibald has been affected by the death of Lily. Because he sings about how he is lost, how he really can't wander around these halls, he can't live in this house when Lily isn't there. And we also hear that he wanders around the world looking for Lily. So obviously Archibald is in the stage of denial when it comes to dealing with grief, but this is a very important part of his character that will come into play later in the musical. And one more thing about this line of Archibald that I actually just noticed as I was listening to it is that near the very end of this whole chaotic singing of these three characters, Archibald says one line. He says, and he's singing this to Lily, now can you tell me why you've brought me home when you're not here? So Archibald only came back to the house because either he felt that Lily called him there, or Lily really did call him there. Again, open to interpretation. And it's interesting, and not really interesting, actually a big part of the musical, that he was called back right when Mary was, in essence, being delivered to his house. It's really impressive because it's not necessarily something you notice, it's just kind of inserted in there as everybody else is singing, but when you hear it, you realize that that is why he's here. He's here because Lily told him to be. Or at least he believes that Lily told him to be. So finally, by the end of the song, Mary believes that maybe it was her that was crying. At the beginning of the musical, the end of her verse is, maybe it was me, saying that maybe she was the one who was crying, and at the end of her verse, where everybody was singing, it ends in the same way. What we also get is the chorus reflecting the sentiment, saying that it must have been Mary who was crying because she's the one who lost her entire family, so it makes sense that she's crying. But it's still left open. It's saying that it has to be Mary, but not coming right out and saying that it is Mary. And a bit of a spoiler alert here, it's not Mary, but we'll see who it is later on in the musical. So that's it for this week's song. Tune in next week for next week's song. See you then! Alone.